here. Tonight we are going to whip up a couple batches of our Christmas cookies. Earlier today we made our pepparkaka dough, which is our Swedish gingerbread cookies. And we're going to whip up some peanut butter cookies, kind of a base, and then we're going to do peanut butter M&M, like peanut butter M&M, so super peanut butter cookies, some fluffernutters, and some peanut butter blossoms. And then we're going to bake up the rest of our sparkling molasses and our butter dreams on here. So let's get our dough going for our peanut butter base here. So we're going to start by adding in a cup of butter. So that's 2 sticks of butter. And we're going to do them in a little mixer here. Makes it go a little bit faster than a hand mixer. And I will say this is my favorite peanut butter cookie base. It's just so delicious. I feel like it's just, I feel like a lot of peanut butter cookies are really dry. This one is delicious and is full of peanut butter flavor, and the brown sugar just really complements them. So we have a cup of peanut butter, and we're going to add in we have a cup of butter in there. We're going to add in a cup of peanut butter. So you kind of have equal parts. And I just eyeball what my cup of peanut butter is going to look like. It's okay if you're a little off. It's not the end of the world. But it's much easier than trying to scoop it out into a dish and measure it. So we've got about a half cup there. And do a little bit more for safe measure. Okay, so we've got about a cup of our creamy peanut butter in there. You want to use like a good peanut butter, not like a healthy one, I should say. So, Jif, whatever's Peter Pan, Skippy, any of those work. Just not the healthy ones. Let's get this on. We're going to cream them together real quick. There we go. You just want to make sure that the butter gets mixed into the peanut butter well, so that it all mixes in well. So I'm just going through and I'm going to push it all down, and it's going to make like a super creamy peanut butter. And you want creamy peanut butter. You don't want to use a crunchy peanut butter. And again, no healthy peanut butters. Okay, that's fairly well whipped up. We're going to add in our brown sugar. And this is what's going to make the cookies the dream. It's brown sugar the whole way. We're going to use 2 cups of brown sugar. Make sure they're kind of firmly packed. But the flavor just pairs so well with the peanut butter. So that's a half a cup. We're at 1 cup now. And I just find it's easier to pack it in my little half cup than it is to get one of my other bigger ones. Okay, we should be at 2 cups now. I'm going to slide this out of the way and wash my hands because they're a little brown sugared. Yeah, I'll put it over here. There we go. And we're just going to cream the brown sugar into our butters, our peanut butter and our butter. And it should mix in fairly easily because that butter is kind of really creamy. And then you just want to take with your spatula again and then just press down on the sides so that you don't have any peanut butter or butter stuck that doesn't get mixed in. Okay.
Can you go over how much butter and butter?
So we have 1 cup of butter to 1 cup of peanut butter, so equal parts of it. And that's going to give you just this wonderful deliciousness to it. Okay, let's add in our salt, our vanilla, and our cornstarch. So we're going to do our salt, 2 teaspoons of salt. Actually, yeah, let's do it. So we're going to do our 2 teaspoons of salt because I did double. This is my a double batch because we're making 3 different types of cookies. And the salt cuts through the sweetness of the peanut butter, which I think just makes it absolutely lovely. We're going to do 2 teaspoons of cornstarch. This is going to help it hold together and just works its magic. So 2 teaspoons, and then 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And then we're going to add in our eggs. 1, 2, and then we're going to add 2 eggs. It seems like there's 2 of everything in this. So 1 and 2. And then we'll let them cream together. Once it's kind of mixed in, there we go. And then I'm going to take again my spatula and push everything down. That way, again, it gets incorporated nicely. Now, the only leavening agents in this recipe is the eggs. So they're a denser cookie, but they are just wonderful. Okay, give it a quick little mix through. And now we're going to add in our flour. And we're going to add in 3 cups of all-purpose flour. And that will be the base of these cookies. And then we're going to kind of do a couple little different things throughout to make 3 different types of cookies from them. Okay. We've got 1, 2, and 3. And then we'll kind of cream this into our peanut butter, and sugar mixture. And move this over for when we roll out our pepparkaka. And this is going to be a nice thick dough. Yeah. Move it up and beautiful. Now I'm just going to take my spatula, push down one more time, and then we'll do it a quick little mix one more time. That just makes sure that it all gets mixed in there. Making sure I scrape off my spatula. And voila, we have the best but simple peanut butter cookie base. And this is going to give you just all peanut butter and deliciousness. No dry cookie here, because I feel like peanut butter cookies can get very dry. This one stays nice and moist and is just so good. These, whenever I make like the fluffernutter bases with these, they disappear so fast. Okay, so we're going to do our 3 types of cookies that we're going to do with them. Our fluffernutters, which will add a dollop of you can either add a marshmallow or marshmallow fluff. And then we're going to add in, we're going to do peanut butter blossoms. So we'll just shape them up in balls. And when they bake out at the very end, we'll put a Hershey's Kiss in them. And then we're also going to mix in some peanut butter M&Ms. So I'm just giving them a good kind of go there. But you can see it's a nice thick dough. We're going to get this guy, get some space over here. You know what? Since I am done with my mixer right now and we're going to be counter space is going to be a prime, I'm going to move it right over here. It's heavy. There we go. And now we have a little bit more space. So I'm going to we'll do kind of 2 rows of each type, and that way when we bake them up, then we'll have a variety on that first batch too. So for our peanut butter blossoms, again, you're just going to make a nice kind of round ball here. And they'll flatten out, but they're not going to flatten out like a whole lot, so you don't have to worry about them running too much. On here. And it's a nice thing is these are all going to bake for about 10 minutes when this time period, so at 350. So it's nice. You can actually bake up 3 batches of different cookies right at the same time. Mhm. And again, a little like ping pong ball size or gumball, I should say. These are more like a gumball than a ping pong ball. Now it is I will say the dough is more dry than a regular cookie dough, but less dry than a shortbread. So it's kind of like mixture in between. And that's because there isn't, a whole lot of added liquid into it. Um, but that peanut butter in there and the regular butter just makes it so creamy and delicious. Okay, so these will be for our peanut butter blossoms. So at the end, after they're done baking, we'll press a Hershey Kiss in them. Now for our next ones, we are going to start out the same thing, but then we're going to make a little thumbprint in them, put a little dollop of marshmallow fluff in it, and then kind of pinch it up around the edges. So essentially making the same little balls again for that base.
And where can they find the recipe?
So we will upload our live onto the link on our page, so you can always go and rewatch it and bake along with me. I am going to make these into a recipe card for our members. We're going to send out some, Christmas cookie cards out tomorrow, hopefully for everyone and for our members, and so they'll have that. But everybody else can just watch the video again, the live, and recreate it from there. Here we go. Although, it's so funny here because growing up as a little girl, I grew up in Iowa. We always had peanut butter blossoms as part of our Christmas cookie things. But in Iowa, it was always very cold and snowy over this. We are rocking a heat wave right now, and it's going to be 70, like 3 degrees for Christmas here, which I am not a fan of because to me, I wish we had snow on the ground and it was cold, or at least cold. I could be without snow, but at least if it was cold, it would be nice. Now I say that, but then a couple of years ago, we had this huge ice storm over Christmas here, and it managed to freeze our pipes. So we didn't have, and it wasn't in all parts of our house, just in a few parts. But we didn't have running water in a few parts of our house. And then I kind of longed for probably the 70-degree Christmas. Okay, let me go here. We're going to kind of make a little well in here. And then we're going to go through, we'll put a little dollop in, and then we'll kind of pinch it around. Now you can always do like a little marshmallow in here if you want to, or you can do marshmallow fluff. Sometimes when I make homemade marshmallows, I will make fluffernutters with the homemade marshmallows because you're just like, everything's homemade then. So kind of go through here. Doesn't matter if it breaks out too much. Now with your marshmallow, don't go overboard on it. Don't go crazy. A mini marshmallow is all you kind of need in here. You don't need a whole lot because marshmallows, when you bake them, they poof up and they get bigger. Now we're going to put in, again, a small dollop of our marshmallow fluff in each one. And then I'll kind of go through and pinch a little bit over on it. It's a little bit messy here, but definitely worth it. I have for my daughter, she loves fluffernutter sandwiches where you do peanut butter and marshmallow fluff. And so we always have a big tub of marshmallow fluff here. Such a simple sandwich, but she sure does love it. And then pop this in here. We'll get that, and then we're gonna mix in some peanut butter M&Ms into our other dough to make our third type of peanut butter cookie. And then these will bake up while we prep up our next batches of it. Here we go. Okay. So a little goes a long way. Put that over here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of pinch up around as much as you can. You don't have to close it up, but I always just like to close a little dome around it on there. Okay, let me wash my hands. Okay. And we're going to do our peanut butter M&Ms now. Now, I'm not going to mix it all because I'm going to make more batches for all these. So I'm going to grab a little bowl to mix them in because I still want plenty of cookie dough to make some more fluffernutters and peanut butter blossoms on there. But we're going to start with, it should be good. Grab a handful more of this.
Judy sent you again.
Well, thank you, Judy. We appreciate that. Okay, so we've got our peanut butter base. We're going to add in Christmas peanut butter M&Ms. You could do regular M&Ms or even chocolate chips if you want. But if you have Christmas peanut butter M&Ms and a peanut butter cookie sounds pretty fantastic to me. So we're going to add in a good about, and we'll hand mix it in because that'll be quicker that way. I was hoping that my kids hadn't found my peanut butter M&M stash because I refill. We always have over the holidays. I always have like little candy dishes out, and the peanut butter M&M bowl always is empty. It's empty right now, so I'm going to refill it. You know, the other candies last a little bit longer, but not the peanut butter M&Ms. But I keep them hidden so that my kids don't just take them all the time and eat just all of them right there. And so, but sometimes I don't hide them well enough, and they come and find them. But they were still hidden well. Okay, we're just going to kind of put them in here, and then we'll put them right here on there. And I would say for these cookies, I try to get like 3 to 4 peanut butter M&Ms per cookie. You don't want to go overboard because then you don't have quite the right ratio. But we'll have them in there, tucked in there. And it's just wonderful because, you just get that nice pop of flavor throughout, and it's nice. And we'll get these. Now, when we made our dough, we added that little bit of cornstarch in here. That cornstarch just acts as a way to like hold it together while still giving it a really great texture. So it just makes it from being like a little bit too runny because peanut butter is looser than butter. Let's grab and pop some M&Ms in here. And then we can get these baking up in our oven. Slide this over a little bit. Make sure we have it all. And then I'm just going to make sure that I have my chocolate chips after we pop them in the oven. I have my kisses, 8 kisses wrapped, because once it comes out and it's hot, you want to put them down so that heat kind of melts the bottom of them and it holds it in there. So I don't want to forget and then be racing against the time to unwrap them. Okay, we're almost there. And then while these are baking, we'll work on our next set of cookies. I think we'll do our sparkling molasses and then our butter dreams, and then we'll save our pepparkaka for the very end because those are going to bake at 375 degrees while these are all baking at 350. Here we go. I'm going to put a little bit of peanut butter dough on this side to hold some of those in. Don't want them popping out. Okay. Looks like we got it. With these, you don't need to use your fork to push them down at all. I know a lot of peanut butter cookies, you can do that crisscross with a fork. You don't need to do this with these at all. They'll come down naturally on their own. Again, they've got that partial butter and peanut butter mixture on there. So I'm just going to put it on here. But 350 for 10 minutes. I'll set my timer. I'm going to set my timer from 9 minutes and 30 seconds. That way I will remember to go over here. We have our Tomten houses out here. While we did bake up 6 Tomten houses, Jack, our lovely Jack, when nobody was looking, he took a whole house and he happened to find the house that had the actual Tomten in it. So I had to secretly hide it underneath one of them again so that we'd have it. Luckily, we have 5 kids, so it was just the spare. Knowing Jack, it was always good to have a spare, but all of a sudden we look around and he had a whole Tomte house in his mouth and he was just eating it away, enjoying himself with a smile on his face, and he knew he was being very naughty. It's just so funny how he is. He enjoys being a troublemaker. Okay, let's set this dough over here. Let's get on. We'll do our butter dreams after this, but let's do our sparkling molasses cookies. We whipped this dough up the other day, and remember we baked half of it, and then we left the other half for this. And this is what's so nice about chilled cookie doughs is you can bake up half, and then you have a fresh batch of cookies, and then like 2 to 3 days later, you can bake up the other half and have another batch of fresh cookies. And you get the same result, which is really, really nice. I want a smaller spoon. So we're gonna scoop out our dough. You don't need to go very big on it. And we're gonna roll it into a ball. And then what makes the sparkling molasses part of these is then you take them and you're gonna roll it through sugar. And they kind of sparkle a little bit when they bake up because of that sugar. Now they don't need a whole lot of room to spread out. They'll flatten out a little bit, but they are just wonderful. And so I'm going to roll a couple of them at a time, then we'll go in there. But the dough needs to be chilled, otherwise they run out a bit too much. So you always got to make sure you chill your dough. But the nice thing is you can enjoy fresh sparkling molasses cookies more than once. And these are a chewy cookie. They're not a ginger snap. They're not crunchy. They're chewy. They have about a fourth cup of molasses in it, and then a teaspoon of cinnamon, like a half a teaspoon of ginger, half a teaspoon of allspice. So they're just a really lovely cookie. But that dark color is from the molasses, which gives you that kind of just that nice flavoring to it, which is different. So when we made our pepparkaka today, and you use dark corn syrup, which is something I rarely ever use. I only ever use dark corn syrup one time a year, and that's to make our pepparkaka dough. And it helps give it a nice dark color as well. And that dough, so if you're with us during our little dinner time stream, we whipped up our dough. And what's unique about that dough is you actually cook part of it over the stove. You melt the butter and the sugars together. And then you kind of have that residual heat in your Dutch oven. And then you add those spices, and it allows those flavors to come out a little bit more, and it kind of incorporates it. And then you let it sit for minimum of 8 hours, or you can have it sit overnight. And then you roll out your dough paper like really thin, and you bake it up. And the nice thing about those cookies is they bake up fast. 5 minutes at 375, and they're done. And those are nice, kind of thin, crisp spice cookies. Let's get this. Roll, just grab balls, and that way we can go a little bit faster on there. My goal is to have this tray to go in when the next one comes out. We'll see if I can beat the little buzzer on that one. And then we'll do our butter dreams. I made sure to set my butter dream dough out a little bit sooner than last time, because butter dreams, they're like a shortbread base, and you chill that dough, but you then need to let that dough just warm up for about 10 or so minutes so that you can roll it.
That Diamond sent you.
Well, thank you, Diamond. We appreciate that. Now, I was going to say, these cookies, these are funny. So my 10-year-old daughter, she's kind of my picky eater. And she announced when I made this, she's like, oh, these are my absolute favorite cookies. And I would have never guessed in a million years that these were going to be her favorite cookies. Because, I should have guessed that, because she always likes the weirder things, the different things. She's the kid who, if you tell her she's having a salad, it's like the happiest thing ever. I remember my brother took her to a Preds game last year, and he made a joke that, oh, you're getting a salad for dinner. And she was like, yay. And he was like, I thought she was going to be upset when I said that. And then she was upset that there wasn't actually a salad that you could buy from the concession stands. And I was like, yeah, that girl loves salads.
You have a question? Are these ginger cookies?
These are sparkling molasses cookies. They do have about a half a teaspoon of dried ginger in them. But they have, a fourth a cup of molasses, cinnamon, allspice. So they have a kind of a nice group of spices in there. So not like a ginger snap. They have not quite the bite that a ginger snap has, that has a good amount of ginger in it, that gives you that spiciness to it. So these are more like a very mellow ginger snap, which I think why I like them better, because they're not as strong. And then if you love molasses, these just have such a nice flavor because of that. Now, I feel like molasses is definitely one of those like spices, not really spice, but it's one of those flavor profiles that you either love it or you hate it because it's really distinct. You know exactly whenever I can taste molasses, I know exactly it's there. And it's funny because when I was younger, I did not like molasses at all, but now I absolutely love molasses and like a molasses bran muffin. Oh, those things are so good. And these cookies. So I feel like it's such a stronger, distinct flavor that I think you like more the older you get. Okay. Roll these guys. And then I feel like I'm going to make it and be ready to pop these in when we take out our next set of cookies. And then we'll work on our butter dreams and then our pepparkaka. Okay, roll these up. I think I have enough to make 2 more. Now these spread out a little bit, but not too much, so you don't have to worry about them running into each other when they're baking. Now, this one's going to be a little itty bitty baby one. Okay. Let me give my hands a quick rinse. And while we're waiting, because it looks like 2 minutes, I rock these out so fast. Let's start prepping up on our butter dreams. We're going to get our maraschino cherries cut in half so that when we roll these out, we can get them on there. And then we'll have our pepparkaka. So we'll have a good amount of waiting here. The nice thing about making butter dreams right now, and I would typically only make these around the holidays, is my oldest daughter is really into Shirley Temples right now, which is like the cherry and the cherry juice mixed with Sprite. And I have lots of cherries that I need to use because she's like taken all of the cherry juice out of here. I told her, I'm like, you got to eat the cherries too. Can't just steal all the juice. Okay, we're going to cut them in half because I make my butter dreams really small. And that way you get a good amount of cherry to shortbread. And the cherry juice inside helps keep that shortbread like a little bit more moist because shortbread, can be kind of dry. But really, really lovely. Okay, that should be enough for that. We just have a little bit of our shortbread cookie dough left. This is a very, very simple dough. It simply is made from butter, sugar, flour, and vanilla. So a cup of butter, a teaspoon of vanilla, a half a cup of sugar, and about 2 cups of flour. And that's all there is in this dough. So very simple dough. It's a shortbread, not super sweet, but that maraschino cherry, which is very sweet, adds a nice little extra sweetness to it. And I feel like this is just like your 1950s cookie.
You have a question. How do you freeze or store the leftover dough?
So if I'm going to be using it in like 2 to 3 days, I will just cover it with plastic wrap. Make sure that the whole top of the dough is covered with it so that it doesn't get any air exposure to it. You can always wrap it up tightly, put it in a Ziploc baggie and pop it in your freezer as well if you want to store it for a bit longer. Now, if you're going to freeze your dough, you do need to let it kind of come down in temperature so it's not so hot or cold when you are working with it, because frozen dough would be essentially impossible to shape. A look at our beautiful peanut butter cookies here. And then we're going to come and, you know what I forgot to do? Unwrap my kisses, but we've got enough time. I'll get them in there pretty quick. But look how gorgeous and delicious these are looking. We'll just put them right here for right now. And I'm going to get my 8 kisses wrapped. But I'm going to slide these in the oven real quick before we do that because I want them to start baking. These are going to bake for 8.5 minutes at 350 degrees. So I'm going to pop these in there. I meant to bring them. Sidetracked. Let me set my timer. I'll do it for 8 minutes, so I have 30 seconds to get over there. Okay, I've got my Hershey's Kisses here. So up here we've got our peanut butter M&M cookies with peanut butter M&Ms. Too many peanut butters in there. Our fluffer nutters, you see how that marshmallow fluff pops up, so you don't want to go overboard on it. We're going to take our blossom and we're going to gently push it in. It's going to cause it to crack a little bit, but it will firm right back up. But that's kind of what a blossom does. Beautiful. And you see how it pushes it down? So you don't want to flatten it out with a fork beforehand because then you'll have funky little lines in it. But you need to push it in here while it's hot. When I was a kid, I used to think that you put the Hershey Kisses in first with the oven. And I was like, how does the Hershey Kiss not melt? It wasn't until I was older that I realized that you pushed it in on top afterwards. But you have your just perfect little peanut butter blossoms here. Beautiful. And I remember my job was always helping my aunt to unwrap the kisses. And I love that because that meant I got to steal some kisses as a kid. And when she would make them, she'd make like 100 peanut butter blossoms. So it was a lot of cookies or Hershey Kisses to wrap at a time. There we go. We'll let these sit for about 5 minutes before we transfer them off. But we got our first kind of round of cookies here going. I'm going to start finishing up on our ones. But again, we have our peanut butter M&M cookies, our fluffer nutters, which are peanut butter and marshmallow, and then the good old classic peanut butter blossoms. Here, I'm gonna roll this out, and you know what? I can actually get this. We can put this on a small one to pop in our oven. Let me get a nice little scissor here. Apparently all my big scissors are MIA. It's the life. I can have like 10 scissors, but they all go missing. But never the little kid scissors. They're always in my utensil drawer. Okay. With these, again, I make small little ones. And then we'll add our cherries. I don't make them super big because I like them to be more cherry to shortbread ratio. But you can make them a lot bigger, and then you have that less of the ratio. But for me, like old school gumball size, the ones where you got a penny out of the penny gumballs, kind of like that size, maybe a smidge bigger. And this dough is much easier to work with. When I baked up the first batch of these the other night, they were still so firm coming out of the refrigerator. Now, again, this is a shortbread, so it is a drier, a slightly more crumbly things, but once that butter starts to melt, it really holds it together. And these are cookies that I definitely recommend baking up in 2 batches when you do your cooking things, because the cherries, for the first 2 to 3 days, the cookies stay perfect, but after that, then the cherry will dry out and the cookie is not as good. So having it, it's not one of those cookies that can last for a while. Although these rarely make it past day 2 in our house. These are my husband's favorite cookies. And when my father-in-law comes, these are one of his favorite cookies as well, so they disappear really fast. Okay, just a few more. I'm always surprised at how many I can get out of this. Put a little pinch more on that one. I think I got 3 more, so I can make 1 more row. And then we'll see if I cut enough cherries. It's always nice when you cut the perfect amount and you're like, I knew I was going to make that many.
What's your favorite cookie?
My favorite cookie would probably be, I think that's kind of a tie. I love the fluffer nutter, which is the peanut butter and marshmallow. But only mine. And I say that because most people, their peanut butter cookie is very dry. Like a bakery, if you get it from bakery, it's never right. But I like this one. And then I love the Swedish pepparkaka, which we're going to be baking up soon because they're just the cookie that I always had growing up. When I tell you we would make over 1,000 of them, we would, all of my siblings and I. So I have 6 full siblings, and then I have 3 half on top of that. But my 6 full siblings and I, so the 7 of us, and my mom and my aunts, every year right after Thanksgiving, a couple days after, we would spend a whole day baking up pepparkaka. So rolling them out and, cutting the shapes out and placing them on and then baking them. And they're thin spice cookies and they last forever. They get better with age. They're cookies that will last over a month in just an airtight container. And that just always reminds me of the holidays. So we're going to just tuck our little half of our cherry into our shortbread cookie here. There we go. And these are the jumbo maraschino cherries, which again gives you a bit more cherry as well, which I love. Almost perfect here. I have 3 halves left. Look at that. I don't know how I have 3 halves left, but I do. Okay, let me wash my hands. We got about a minute on there, but while we're doing that, I know I realized that after I said that. That was my quick counting, and then I was like, I cut an odd number and not an even number. It just lined up so perfectly. I just thought it was even. Okay, we got our cookies right there. While we're waiting, we can start getting our dough rolling for our Swedish pepparkaka. So we made this dough earlier. This is my favorite. You can see we've already stolen some to eat. This is not like an American gingerbread cookie. It has cardamom, cinnamon, ginger, and cloves in it, and it is just wonderful. Let me grab a spoon. Now, this is the one where we kind of heated it up, melted the butter on the stove. We added in the sugars, so brown sugar, granulated sugar, and then dark corn syrup. We're going to grab it. It's going to seem crumbly at first, but we've got to roll this out pretty thin. The way the rule of the thumb growing up was the thinner, the better. So, and that was kind of, my mom said, you were judged on whether you could make a good pepparkaka was how thin you could roll it out. There comes a limit to exactly how thin you can roll it because then it gets too hard to transfer.
For your other cookies, how do you keep them from spreading too much?
So depending on which dough, I have to chill them. Chilling them is going to prevent them from spreading because the dough is going in cold, which means the butter won't melt as fast. If the butter melts too fast, that's when your cookies spread. And it's also if you kind of mess up the ratio of like liquid to dry, if your cookies are too wet, they'll spread. So these are my sparkling molasses cookies, and they are chilled dough. And you see how they don't spread out. They're just perfect little brown orbs of deliciousness. I'm going to put my little butter dreams in here. And these can bake between 10 and 12 minutes, just depending on how many times you're opening up your oven. So I'm going to put them in here for 10 minutes, and we'll see. But look at these gorgeous cookies. They've got a little shimmer and shine to them from the sugar. If you want an even more shine on them, then use decorating sugar. But I'm like the person who I have regular sugar, not always decorating sugar. So it's what we use. But they have the nice flavor of the cloves and ginger and cinnamon in them. And they're just so lovely and delicious. And these, again, those are Evie's kind of favorite cookie. They're but not as spicy as a ginger snap. They look a lot like them, but you get a little bit more of that molasses flavor than you do a true ginger snap, which is pretty spicy because of all the ginger in it. Okay, we're going to take our dough here and we're going to roll it out. Again, it's going to seem crumbly at first, but the thinner you roll it, the more it holds together. And when I say thin, it's going to be thin. Let's slide these. And it's actually much easier to roll out than, say, a pie crust. Pie crust is a lot more firm because this one isn't really cold. There we go. Okay, I think we're pretty good for our first round. So again, we have this nice, it's pretty thin around the edges. And then what I'm going to do is, let me grab a cool baking sheet. I've got like 101 baking sheets here, guys. But we'll do a cool one. Growing up, that was before parchment paper was a thing. We always just put them on a greased baking sheet. But now that you have the wonderful parchment paper here, I already went through one package, so I'm on my second package of it. And this is the good old Costco one that they say lasts forever, but eventually you run out. But line your baking sheet up with this. That way your cookies transfer off and they bake nicely. Okay, there we go. Got our new roll. Now, sometimes I buy the pre-cut sheets, but I have baking sheets in 3 different sizes. I have the little ones, I have my big sheet and a half, and then the standard ones. So I find just the rolls work well because I can put whatever ones I want on there. Now, these cookies do not spread out at all, so you don't need to worry about that. Now, I have a couple cookie cutters that are classic. This is the Swedish pig, which is an essential cookie to have on your gingerbread cookie tray. So, and it takes for a while for you to see the pig. This is how it is, like the feet, the tail, head. So many of my friends would come over and they're like, this is such a weird gingerbread man. And I'm like, it's not a gingerbread man, it's the pig. Gotta love the pig. So we kind of cut out. And the rule is to try to get them as close together as possible so you can minimize the amount of rolling you do. Because when you're growing up as a kid, after you've rolled out cookies for about an hour, you're like, I never want to roll out cookies again. And we're going to roll out some of this dough today, and then I'm going to roll out some tomorrow with my kids when they wake up, because this dough can just sit for up to 24 hours before you need to kind of use it. And then, of course, we'll throw in a couple classic ones. Now, your helper in this is you're going to want to use a really thin spatula. Pull your dough away from the edges, because you'll just mold that back into a ball and roll out. These cookies can be rolled several ways. And then just make sure you have a well-floured surface, but look how thin those are. The thinner, the better. And then we're going to lay them on our baking sheet here on our parchment paper, and they will bake up. Nice and thin. Of course, she wants to slide off here. Again, you can get them fairly close together because these cookies aren't going to spread out. They might puff up like a centimeter more, but hardly any space. And I say, I feel like my grandfather would be proud of how thin these cookies are. That's what he would always judge. You'd come in and when you're a kid, you'd have these big fat ones because you didn't roll them out nearly as thin as you thought you rolled them out. And those cookies don't crisp up quite as nice. The thinner, they get more of that crispness to them. And he would always be like, could be thinner. But these are pretty darn good. And we'll layer these ones. So you can see how we roll out, and we barely even got one tray filled up. We'll get our next one rolling out. I'm going to see if I'm going to get a big glob of dough, because I have one of these guys, which is supposed to be I can get like 20 cookies out of it with less work. Sometimes it works out well. Sometimes it's like a disaster. Okay, so we've got our dough, and I will say this dough is so good to eat. here.
You have a question. So is this a hard cookie?
It is a crisp cookie, yes. So it's like a nice way I like to call them are like spiced crisp cookies. Like they're a very thin cookie. I feel like you can buy a version of this here. It's called like Anna's pepparkaka or Anna's spice cookie, which are like thin ones. But I know our grocery store and like the World Market has them. Um, they're not as good because you know you're always impartial to your family's recipe. And so those are very similar to them, but yes, like a really thin, crisp cookie. They're not chewy. They're really paper thin. So that's what makes them so delicious. And the dough is like it's a kind of like a slightly drier dough, but that's part of it is because you've kind of cooked it already, you know, with the melted butter, and that allows those spices to really come out. Otherwise, they're not as fragrant because these only bake in the oven for 5 minutes. And with spices, the more heat they get, the more flavor comes out. And so pre-cooking them in that butter and sugar for, you know, allows them to really get the full flavor in. There we go. And that's one thing that's also really nice about these cookies is they get better with age. I say about they're really great, you know, right about 2 weeks later, they are really crispy and they've mellowed. So they're really nice. Okay, let's see. And these are not like American gingerbread cookies. Like I always called them Swedish gingerbread cookies, but you don't decorate them. Um, you just leave them kind of as is. Oh, look at that. I got enough to kind of push in here. Okay. We'll see how if I've got enough strength to push it all down in all the areas. Make sure. Okay. I think I got it. I think they'll come up nicely. So then just peel away, but don't get rid of it because this is all dough that you can roll back out because this dough is very, very forgiving. You know, you need a lightly floured surface, but it can take that flour. Oh, little surgery. And this is something that you're going to need a thin spatula for because it's going to be really, really hard to transfer them without it. There we go. Got our next one. And you can see how they've got trees kind of built in the spaces too. Perfect. And then before we can pop these in the oven, these we bake at 375, so a little bit warmer, hotter, but they need to cook a little bit faster and a little bit higher because you want them to get nice and crisp. So you need that butter. But on the plus side, these will only cook for 5 minutes and then they'll be ready. You just want to sit, they cook for 5 minutes, but then they need to sit for about 5 minutes before you enjoy them to allow them to completely crisp up. Okay, that one's too big to fit on this one. Put a couple stars in here. And perfect, because by the time we finish up get this one out and get that one in, should be warmed up just in time. Okay. I'm going to bring my oven to 375. That way it has a chance to warm up. And then we'll grab those cookies out. Perfect. Here are our butter dreams. Lovely. And now these are shortbread, so they're going to be a nice kind of paler cookie, but they will firm up and they'll have that nice, has classic like a Walker shortbread or whatnot, but are so delicious. We've got quite the little cookie Bananza over here on there. Let's finish getting our cookies out on this one, and then we should be able to pop it in the oven for the final 5 minutes, and then we have our little walkthrough. We can go over our cookies again. Here, I'll flip up some of these stars. And I will say that's the nice thing is So we always had lots of little cookie cutters too, because you always wanted to maximize the amount of space. And the little cookies are just as good as the big ones. They cook up all around the exact same. So it's just a nice to have a good, variety of cookie styles and shapes and sizes. Okay. We can get a few more on here. Let's see. I don't think I can get any more. We can get one more star. Maybe a little diamonds. There we go. Okay. Let me see what our cookie temperature is at right now. Okay, almost there. Why don't we, while we wait, once we hear the beep, we'll know it's ready. Let's take these guys off to let their final resting. They've waited about 5 minutes, which means they are ready to kind of cool off here. So we can start sliding these guys. So look, here's our little peanut butter M&M ones. They've got this nice, again, golden brown color on the outside, which will be delicious. And then we're going to add, we'll get our fluffernutters going, which again, you have just this nice kind of golden brown color to it. And I like to make, for the holidays, I make my cookies all a little bit smaller so that you can enjoy multiple flavors without having to indulge in so many size cookies. But these cookies can all be made a little bit bigger. Okay, perfect timing. Let's go get our tray in, baking up. Again, these are gonna bake up super fast. That's what's great about them is 5 minutes. And so when you have all of your kids rolling them out and putting them out, you're just constantly like going in and out of the oven. So 375, 5 minutes. Now, if you're doing double layers, that bottom layer needs always about a minute more. Put my timer in. And so essentially, you take the top one out, you move one up, and that way that bottom one gets a little bit of that top heat, and it kind of always cooks up nicely. Okay, and now let's get our peanut butter blossoms on here. We've got our nice, good little melted. Perfect. And these, you don't want to eat them until that Hershey Kiss on the top has firmed up, but it has melted into the cookie, so it will stay there nicely. Beautiful. And the nice part is now I have another baking sheet that I can use for my pepparkaka. And then our sparkling molasses cookies here are a chewy cookie. Look at this. They've got a nice kind of golden brown touch on them, but they are a very chewy cookie. Not a dry, not a crisp, but a chewy cookie, which makes them even better. They're just so delicious. I'm going to shake off these peanut butter crumbs. With parchment paper, you can reuse it. I have found about like 5 or 6 times before it gets a little too soaked with like the residual butter from the cookies, but you don't need to change it out between every cookie, which is nice because you can keep reusing it. But after about 5 rounds, it does need replacing. Well, that one needs a whole new surgery. Too much for me to fix. There we go. We'll get our on here. And then some of the other shapes that we always do is I'll show you. We have the Swedish gingerbread man, which is a bit different than a traditional gingerbread man. So this is like the Swedish gingerbread man. And he has like, it's like he's wearing parachute pants. But we always had them, and I couldn't find there's a girl one too, where she is wearing like a dress. But those were just always like the traditional ones we had as a kid. But definitely always had the pigs. This is a Dalahästa, which is the Swedish horse. So it's like that they paint. And then of course we have our little reindeer as well. And this is kind of like the Swedish style reindeer. But these are, again, really good ones to fill up on your areas that you have little bits of dough so that you aren't wasting your rolling out. Now, the one thing I have found is bigger cookie cutters for this don't always translate as well because there is a more delicate cookie. And so when your dough is really, when your cookie's really big, it's more likely to break, as I already lost this little Dada Hesta's leg. But as we always said growing up, surgery. Just need to get it close to it and then it will come back together. But again, the thinner the better with the cookie. And then classic hearts, circles, those are all just like a basic one that you can do that are really easy. And then snowflakes and whatnot. Okay. Get these. We'll get a little bit. I'm going to put this to go together. We'll roll it one out. And hopefully by the time we have this rolled out, we'll be able to take our last batch of cookies out of the oven so you can see how they look, their finished product on it. Again, that's a nice thing is these cookies take like no time to bake. So you can really whip up a whole bunch of them. And when I made our dough, it's not a very big batch of dough, but that batch of dough will probably make around 200 to 300 cookies. But again, like 5 cookies equal probably like 1 chocolate chip cookie because they're just so thin. And you don't want to roll them out thick because thick won't allow them to crisp up. So you really have to do them nice and thin, but the dough is not difficult to work with. And the flavors in here are cinnamon, cloves, ginger, and cardamom. And that cardamom, I think, gives it that unique flavor. And not all Swedish gingerbread cookies recipe have it, but ours always did growing up. So I really, and kind of gives it something a little extra special. But it has just a nice kind of very mild Christmas spice to it. It's not too strong. Okay, let's go grab these cookies out of the oven. So 5 minutes at 375, and they look perfect. And you can tell that they're done is they have a slight browning around the edges. You don't want their browning to get too dark because these are going to sit on this tray for about 5 minutes, which means they will continue to cook and then they'll firm up some more. But if you get to a dark brown edge, you've overcooked them. So you want just this ever so slight kiss of brown around the edges. You can really kind of tell just on the little edges, slightly darker. You don't want to move them yet because they're still soft and still set. But after about 5 minutes, they'll be firm enough where you can pick them off and you can literally crack them in half and they've got this nice little crispness to them. Well, guys, we are kind of done with our cookie bake off here. So we'll walk through our cookies one more time with them. So the cookies we baked up tonight, again, are our Swedish pepparkaka or our Swedish spice cookies that have the lovely flavors of cinnamon, ginger, cardamom, and cloves. And then we have right over here that are hiding, we've got our peanut butter blossoms, our peanut butter and peanut butter M&M cookies, our fluffernutters, so they have a little bit of the marshmallow fluff in them, but that base of that peanut butter cookie is so delicious with the mixture of peanut butter, butter, and brown sugar. Then we have our Butter Dreams, which is a shortbread cookie with a maraschino cherry on it. Kind of looks like Rudolph's nose. And then, of course, our Sparkling Molasses cookies, which is a soft, chewy cookie. Has a hint of ginger in it, but most of that flavor comes from the molasses and the cinnamon in it. And they're just absolutely delicious. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to that link and watch what we made. So our cookie bonanza here, and you can watch again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear. Got all of my different baking sheets in there. And as you notice, we use three different sizes. We've got our small ones, our half sheets. We've got our mega sheets here. It's a sheet and a half, as well as our regular one. But I have all of those in my Amazon storefront as well. But again, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe.